Hi everyone, welcome to the Week 2 online lecture for College Success Skills 100. Hopefully by now you've got a better idea of what this class is going to look like and our structure for the quarter. But for those of you who are still struggling, I really encourage you to take some time to send me an email with any questions you might have. You can also shoot me a voicemail on my office phone number, which is posted on your syllabus and also online. If you do have any questions beyond that, we can certainly set up a meeting. I don't have office hours, but I'm in my office most hours. So if you give me a call or shoot me an email, we can set up an appointment to talk. So far in the class, we've had 2 face-to-face lectures and 1 online lecture, this being the second. In the first face-to-face class, we talked about the syllabus and what the class would look like. Hopefully now, again, you've got a better view of what that actually means. In the second face-to-face class, we talked about using your calendar and scheduling out your time for the quarter. In the first online lecture for week 1, we followed up with what we had already started talking about, which is your motivation for coming to college. The goal of this class is really to build on the information that we're learning each week so that we can apply what we've already learned to new information each time we come together as a class. So today, knowing that you have certain motivations to bring you to school, knowing that you have certain learning styles to help you succeed while you're in school, and knowing that you have some techniques under your belt to actually plan out your time, we're going to talk about a way to make sure that your time is used what we call intentionally by setting some goals, marking your progress along the way, and by the end of the quarter assessing whether or not you've actually achieved those goals. In addition to getting your grades back, in addition to getting your assignments back from your instructors, setting goals actually gives you something to measure that's a little bit harder to see. So we'll talk about how you can identify those goals, how to make them a little bit easier for you to measure at the end, and also why they're important. They're not just a waste of your time. So again, we're going to talk briefly about calendars. I'll just ask you some reflective questions for you to ask yourself on your own, and do a little bit of a check-in on Monday, this coming Monday, to get some feedback and some feeling about whether or not you're actually utilizing your calendars the way that we are asking you to. We're also going to talk about how you can set some SMART goals. If you haven't already started the Week 2 discussion board, I encourage you to finish this lecture before you do that. Because it will hopefully help you in that process. But there is enough information in the Week 2 materials other than this lecture to probably complete that task okay. Then we're going to talk about what happens after you've accomplished a goal or as you're in the process of accomplishing a goal and how you can measure your success and improve in the future. So calendars, I'm going to ask you 3 questions and they're just for you to answer. If you're an interpersonal learner, maybe if there's someone nearby you can talk to about this. I assure you it's not totally weird if you start off with explaining why you're talking to them about it. The first question I want to pose to you is, are you actually using it? And there are 2 pieces to using your planner. It's not just carrying it around in your book bag or leaving it in your car and never actually touching it. The first is to always continue adding tasks and assignments and timelines to everything that you've got going on in your life. The reason you want to do that is because if you leave something out, you might become accustomed to having written things down, and you could be more susceptible to forgetting things. The second piece is to actually check it on a regular basis, meaning rather than just going in to write things down, you need to go in and read what you've already written down. Trivial of you, maybe you have photographic memories or you're a kinesthetic learner, and the process of writing something down helps it become more ingrained in your brain.
But for the rest of us, it's probably useful to remind yourself what you've written down and to remind yourself of what's coming up each and every day. My process before I go to bed is to look at my calendar online. Every night before I go to bed, I check my Outlook accounts and I check my emails to make sure that I've got exactly what I need completed
before I wake up for the next morning. If there's anything I've forgotten, I may need to stay up just a little bit later. Of course, sleep is incredibly important and I don't pull all-nighters. But I like to check my calendar each night before I go to bed, and it's a really helpful tool I found for a lot of students to actually do the same.
So if you've got a physical calendar in your hand, you might as well bring it into the house with you, and before you go to bed at night, maybe an hour or two before you go to bed, open it up, look at what is coming up the next day or the next 2 days, and make sure that you can accomplish those things in the time that you have allotted. If you need more time, you're going to need to rearrange your schedule a little bit to make sure you've got time to complete them. So if you're like me, you're not a fan of surprises. I supervise a couple of staff members up here at Campus View Village, and what I always tell them is if something happens, I don't want to find out about it the next day. I want to find out about it the day it happens. And if nothing else, just send me an email and let me know that it did happen so that when I come in the next day, it's not a humongous surprise and I'm not getting phone calls from parents and students who are upset. For you, a surprise might be something similar, meaning at the end of the quarter, you might have decided you were really going to work hard in a class, and then you knew you kind of slacked off there in the middle, but you thought you probably did okay. And then you get your report card back or your grade report back, and you find that you got a D. Well, that wasn't what you were expecting. That's a pretty nasty surprise. That's not a good surprise to have. Similarly, a person might be expecting a B and kind of resign themselves to that, and then when at the end of the quarter they find that they get an A, that's a big surprise. And maybe that's a pleasant surprise, but it's one that you could have known about long ahead of time. So in order to make sure we're eliminating all surprises in our academic realm, which is a good thing, we really want to set some goals for ourselves. And goals are, according to Wild, a statement of intent, purpose, or expected outcome. So basically, there's something that you tell yourself, verbally or on paper, that you want to see happen within a certain time frame. Goals in general can be really lofty. I have a goal to be a friendly person. That may be something I work hard for, but I don't have any way of measuring that along the way, other than making sure that I can keep my friends over time. I don't have any time setting for that. I don't have any deadlines. There's nothing holding me accountable to making sure I'm achieving that goal within a time frame, because all I said was I wanted to be a friendly person. So, goals in general are important because they define your purpose. They guide your actions, they assign a timeline and assess a situation. But like I just said, if a goal is just a statement of purpose, it may not actually do all of those things. So an effective goal, a true goal, is what we call a SMART goal. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. SMART. And if a goal that you have written down or that you have stated meets all of these criteria, you will be able to assess whether or not you're achieving the goal that you have defined for yourself, because it was specific enough to give you guidance in your actions. It was measurable, meaning throughout the course of achieving the goal, you're able to identify points along the way that prove that you're progressing towards your goal. It's achievable because it's something that you're physically able to do with the resources you have at your disposal. It's realistic because, again, it's something you're able to do, and it's not so lofty that you're going to have to put the rest of your life on hold in order to achieve it. And it's timely, meaning that there's a deadline. There's a point at which you're going to be able to say, well, I didn't achieve my goal, but I can reassess my timeline, or I did achieve my goal ahead of time, and that's a good thing for me so that when I set a goal in the future, I know I can use less of my time. If you feel so inclined, in the notes here on the video, you're going to see this online definition link. Feel free to click on it. It's a great format for how you can identify what a SMART goal is and what a SMART goal is not. But that information is actually already on Moodle 2 in the Week 2 discussion, Week 2 information. So it's called the SMART Goals information sheet. Feel free to go in there and look at what a SMART goal truly is. In order to define whether or not you're actually accomplishing a goal, you're going to have to actually set it. That may seem silly, but you might think in your mind some lofty idea of what a goal could be. But if you're not putting it down in structured words, in a structured sentence, then that whole SMART process becomes a little bit fluid. And you don't want that. You want your goal to be pretty rigid, something that you can actually work towards. So setting a goal is simply defining what you want to happen. again, in a clear way. Accomplishing your goal is finishing the product of working towards achieving the goal. And that has to be done by measuring whether or not you actually got what you wanted out of the situation. So we call that in higher education and a lot of other industries assessment. We're assessing our work to make sure that we're actually achieving the goals and the outcomes we have set for ourselves. At the end of the quarter, your grade is going to be based off of something that we've already talked about, which are learning outcomes. Learning outcomes are a form of goals. By the end of the quarter, timely, you will have achieved all of these things. They're realistic, achievable, measurable, and attainable.
Because we're going to structure time throughout the quarter for you to actually do those things. So at the end of the quarter, I'll know that I've achieved those goals and that you've achieved those goals. So when you're getting ready to do your week 2 discussion response, if you haven't already done so, this is what you're going to be doing. You're going to start by opening up the SMART Goals Setting Action Plan, or the SMART Goals Worksheet. And it's located in the week 2 materials. And this is a Word document that you can download, print off, or just download and type into, where you'll actually complete 6 goals. You'll write down 6 goals, each of which have a specific theme that are defined on that assignment. And once you're finished with that first part, which is actually writing the goals down and making sure they meet the SMART criteria, each and every goal must meet the SMART criteria, then you're going to move on to part 2, which is in the same worksheet. Part 2 is where you write down the goals again, but this time, in addition, you're going to write some steps. It can be 1 step, it can be 5 steps, it can be 50 steps. It doesn't matter. But you're just going to write down some measurable benchmark points in the quarter in which you're going to be able to say, by this date, I will have done this, which will have done this to achieve my goal. So say your goal for your grades is to get an A in your history class, and you're struggling, and you know that. And so getting an A might be a really difficult goal for you to achieve, but it's realistic and it's attainable because you know you have the skill set and the time to actually dedicate to that class and make it a successful course. So you say your first step is that you're going to go to your faculty's office hours or meet with your faculty when they're available. So your steps might be scheduling that meeting, following up with that meeting, going to the meeting, asking a certain series of defined questions at that meeting, and then coming away from that meeting with a specific point or a specific idea that will help you succeed in the class. That's going to be a great series of steps to help you achieve your goal of getting an A in art history or in the art class or the history class or whatever class it's going to be. Once you've finished doing this worksheet, keep it. I don't want you to throw it away. I don't want you to ignore it. It is a useful resource. I give it to my staff each and every quarter. And what I do in terms of my evaluation of them is really just, what have you done to actually achieve your goals this quarter? In addition to doing good work and making sure that they're achieving my defined outcomes, I want to know that they've done something for themselves and that they've actually worked towards those things in the course of a quarter. Otherwise, they're just going to get lost in the shuffle, just so many students often do. So please keep this. Then go on to discussion board and respond to discussion board post 2 if you've not already done so. That will be a very simple reflection on what that process was like for you. You might share 1 or 2 of your goals. I would really hope that you do, but only share what you're comfortable and what's going to be effectively relevant to other students. And help share some of the steps you're going to take, maybe give some deadlines, maybe ask your classmates to hold you accountable to that on a regular basis in some way. This is really, I think, going to be the most important part of your quarter, because at the end, regardless of what grade you get in this class, if you haven't achieved all of the goals you've set out for yourself, or at least most of them, or if you didn't achieve them and didn't learn from that process, then this quarter was not a useful experience for you. So that's it. That's all we had to talk about this week. But on Monday, we've got a little bit more to talk about, and that's where I'm going to introduce some resources that are available at Skagit Valley College. When I say resources, I don't just mean money, and I don't mean time or energy, or the things that we talk about as resources in business programs or in construction programs or anything like that.
I'm talking about resources or things that you can use to your advantage, that you pay for automatically as a student, or that are free through grants and other funding programs. I won't go over all of them because many of them are very specific to very specific populations of students. But most of the resources that I'll be talking about on Monday are actually available to each and every one of you. And I'm going to really hope that you reach out to these resources and try and actually get engaged with them. Next week's online lecture will be about how you can get engaged in college. And getting engaged in college is more than just being present in your classes or getting good grades on your assignments. It's actually being an active part of the campus culture, being a positive part of the campus culture, and really being here for more than just your classes. For some of you, that might not be an easy sell, but I'm going to use some statistics to hopefully convince you as to why being engaged on campus outside of the classroom is really valuable for you. I want to remind you, please bring your calendars or your schedule each and every class period. We may not always use them, but it's good to go back and to check in and make sure that you're using them effectively. Remember, through when we talked about reinforcement, practice makes perfect. We're going to positively reinforce the process of using these calendars so that it becomes a natural part of your life. And hopefully, over time, any time management issues that you've had over the course of your life will be mostly negated because you'll be in a completely new place. Please, again, feel free to contact me if you have any questions or if you would like to talk about anything else in your classes. Hope you have a great weekend, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.